And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Damien Horton, singer and songwriter who had a near-death experience due to a high-speed car accident, which we're going to learn about and more. Damien, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, Damien, let's start on the day that you had that car accident and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my story, my journey, my whole lifeline was always about deep self-worth issues. So I'd carried immense pain ever since I was a little boy. That sort of all culminated in this night, like, my dark night of the soul, which is August 12, 2007. And whatever the bottom of the barrel is, that's the place I was at. In that point, I was completely lost, clinically depressed, suicidal, and had believed I was worthless for an extremely long time. And I just set off that day with the intention of just, another day of suppressing emotion and drinking and drugging, whatever I could find to take away the pain. And then that night, I found myself at an intersection at about 3 a.m. and my hands were slumped over the steering wheel, and I just felt like everything in my life had led up to this exact moment in time, and this roundabout had these three paths that were ahead of me. And I could turn right and go back to my mate's house, like straight back to the life I'd always been living, which I knew was just the past. I knew it was more pain, it was more of the same, it was more drugs and hating on myself, and I couldn't do it anymore. Or turn left, and I was going to go down to the city and go to a club, try and find a chick or gamble my money away on the pokies. And I remember thinking, one more orgasm isn't going to fix your problems, Damien. Like, I'm talking to my higher self. And I couldn't do it anymore. And the road ahead went back to my mum. And I had the most immense spiritual movement of energy, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And I spoke to the higher self, I spoke to the universe, and I promised and I swore that I wouldn't do it anymore. And I said, you have to take this away. I just want to go home. I want to go home. And 45 seconds later, after sending out that intention, I had an extremely high-speed car crash and plowed my car into a rock wall, and my face went directly into the steering wheel. And I had critical head injuries, complex pan facial fractures where my face broke off my skull, and critical hemorrhaging, and broke my spine in 6 places. So the last memory I have was just that overwhelming sense of pleading to a higher consciousness, pleading to a higher power, and being finally congruent with my promise that I won't live like this anymore. I will get it right. I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm worthy. Like this declaration, that the last memory I had, and then bang, it just in this world, in this dimension of space and time, 8 days passed. And I found myself in a state of unity consciousness where there was no linear time at all. There was no backstory. There wasn't my dad left me when I was 3 years old and, I am Damien Horton. I am the kid that had depression. I am none of the things that we believe we are, that the ego thinks we are and believes in, none of that existed. It was just infinite, eternal, pure consciousness, loving consciousness. And I was given a test, or I tested myself, is what the way I like to put it to people. There was an offer made in my coma for me to return to my old life. I felt actually that one of the characters in my coma was like a trickster. It was like I was setting myself up for a test to find out whether or not my heart was completely pure. This was all about my heart in that space. And I said no. I said no. I chose love. I chose the experience of life. And I wanted to honor life and the beauty and the pain and the ups and the downs and the whole expanse of our human experience. And I heard my brother's voice. And I had been existing in this higher state of consciousness for over a week. But where I was, there was no time. And I wasn't Damien Horton. It's really hard for people to understand this, but in that state, we are unconditioned consciousness. And the moment I heard my brother's voice, I said, I am. And whatever follows, I am, we manifest into existence. I said, I am Damien. I remember now. And I got pulled into a portal of light, but not like bright light. It was like pale, soft, divine light. And it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. And it's like a gateway, it's a portal. It's I was pulled from that state of unconditioned consciousness back into a physical shell, 42 kilos, with more than 40 titanium plates drilled into my face. After they'd cut my face off and rebuilt it. And there I was with my brother beside me and my mum at the foot of the bed crying. And I had no memory that I'd ever crashed my car, that any of this had taken place. But what was more real to me, and still to this day, is the most real experience I've ever had and transcends any PhD or teacher or news report or book on the shelf. Infinitely greater is what I experienced in that place. It's more real than this conversation we're having right now. And then the journey began. Then it was, okay, now I've got to heal my brain and body and create a new life. So that was it.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us. So are you saying while you were there, you completely forgot about Damien and who Damien was?
Yeah.
Do you think there was an outside or some other entity that was there that helped you remember your brother? If not, what was the catalyst that made you remember your brother?
It was a desire to be here. It was a knowing that I had a message to share with the world and that I wanted to honor the second chance, the second opportunity to finally realize that the most sacred gift that we've ever been given, that you will ever receive, you've already been given it. And it's called life. And that life should be honored and it is sacred. And as soon as I had that knowing, I was pulled back through into this place.
So
And after an entire life of hating yourself and believing that I was so worthless, no, I can't even put it into words how far into the darkness I traveled. But to come out, I felt like I was plugged into a 240-volt wall socket. The electricity coming off my body and the connection to my heart has never left since I came out of that coma. Sometimes it diminishes a bit, but it's never gone away. But to answer your question, no, that it depends on who you think you are. If you say, yes, I am Damien Horton, I'm Jeff, and I am the image in the mirror, and I am my story, and I am my past, well, no, that's not the ultimate truth. That is not. That is, you are a one-time only, perfect and sacred expression of universal consciousness having a physical linear experience that we call life. And we've conditioned the absolute, we've conditioned this perfect state that is eternal. It has no beginning and no end. That's home. That's the home in you. It's where you came from and it's where you have to go back to. But we have conditioned that into I am Jeff, I am Damien Horton, and we have come here for the purpose of experience. We are experiencing multiplicity, polarity, diversity, separation in a place where there is no separation. It's like in a dream. There are characters, but they're all you. They're all you in the dream. If you realize that they're all that ultimately you're only meeting yourself, I guess you could say, when you meet other people throughout your day. But all I would say is that my higher self, which I cannot be separate from, there's not a subject-object relationship at all, because that's the God of the ego. That's from my physical experience. Here I am, and so it's outside of me. What I can tell everyone, and I haven't moved 1 inch in over a decade, is there's no reality outside of consciousness. There is not. Consciousness is the creative force of this entire cosmos, and you are it, and it is you.
do you think that you left your body before the impact?
It's possible. It's possible because there is no memory. There's no memory. Like I lost consciousness instantly on impact. But I know the ambulance members said that I awakened for a little bit of time en route to the emergency room, and was fighting them. I didn't like being restrained. I was trying to fight them and get out of the ambulance. But I've got no memory of that at all. So yeah, I guess that's an incredible gift that I was given, was that initial pain and trauma I didn't have to go through. For me, it was all on the opposite side of the coma after the first operation. All of that pain and that healing and those ups and downs I had to go through. But there was absolutely no memory of impact or the next 8 days, apart from what happened inside the coma.
Before you remembered this life and who you were, what were you doing while you were there, and what were you thinking about? Were you just enjoying the feeling of love and bliss and the warmth of the light? Or were you doing anything else?
we can't conceive of this state in our normal waking state of consciousness because there is no time. There's no linear experience of time in that place. For me, the purpose of the experience I had was simply to test myself, ultimately, to find out in my heart if I was going to honor life. It was, as soon as I authentically said no to the test that I was given in that space, it all dissolved, it unraveled, and I was pulled into the light, as cliche as that sounds. And just for your audience, I was not raised religious in any way and was a devout atheist for a decade up until that point. And something came into me in the coma and it's never left. It's like some Damien crashed his car that night and some other Damien got out of that coma and has been here ever since. So
Many people use the word higher self. Do you feel that's accurate, or would you say that potentially it should be that your complete self is on the other side and only a fraction of you is here?
all I can say is that all expressions, the varied expressions that we see throughout this world, aren't separate bodies. It's the highest truth that can be reached is one. It's oneness. It's not something that you can look to your mind and form a thought or a belief about, because that's not it. That won't get us there. When you experience something as profound as a spiritual awakening, it is a knowing that takes time to integrate and process, and it doesn't come from a belief. It doesn't come from someone told you this, or I read it in a book, or I was raised in this certain religion, and since I was a kid I was told this is the book, that has the answers. When you experience something as profound and direct as what I went through, it rewrites the entire anatomical structure of your brain, and it's sort of, even on a cellular level throughout your body, something changes that you can't go back from. You can't put the genie back in the bottle once you take the genie out of the bottle. Or you could say, once consciousness expands beyond I am Damien Horton, I am that image in the mirror staring back, I am, insert the story of your past here, don't. All those I am things are conditioned states of consciousness. We have attached meaning and said we've collapsed infinity into one possible permutation and said this is how it is. But ultimately, once you take away all the belief and you take away all the thought and all the mind energy and all the things that we've gotten lost in this dream of physicality, if you take that all away, what's left? It's I am. I am is what's left. Unconditioned, infinite, eternal, loving consciousness. And that's what I've directly experienced in my coma, and multiple times since then, through transcendental meditation experiences that I've had since. So I guess we always want to believe that I am me, I am real, let me, like we graffiti things and we etch things into stone, because the last thing that an ego wants is to not know that it's not real in a sense. But it's not that we're not real, it's actually the opposite. It's like I said before, we are a one-time only, perfect, sacred expression of universal consciousness. Having an experience called life, that is how important, how sacred, and how perfect all of us are. And like, even if you look at the neurological wiring, like the actual wiring of your brain compared to my brain, everyone's mapping is unique and perfectly unique and can never be ever again. So for me, what I experienced in my coma, through dissolving the self, if you will, has made this world so much more wondrous. And I experience levels of love and appreciation and compassion for other human beings that I didn't know was even possible. But to, to look in the mirror and say, that is me. I mean, I've had 4 different faces. I've looked into that mirror and thought, who are you? Who is staring back at me? And that's what I mean. All the things that the I am gets confused, the I am gets lost in, the material possessions, the story of the past. I am Damien Horton. I am an author. I am a singer. Yes, that's part of our human experience, but it's not who we ultimately are. And what I found is that everything that exists inside your heart, that felt sense of pure love, not for a thing or an object or a person. I mean, love for existence. That is eternal, and that is the true self. That is who we are, and it has never had a beginning, and it will never, ever have an end. And I know that because that is the state I existed in my coma, and it removed all fear. I'd lived my whole life with so much fear about death. And then through all that pain and all that suffering, I was liberated from all fear, and it's gone. Like, it left over 10 years ago. So yeah, in the end, this journey I've been on and having my face cut off and 40 bits of metal put into it has been the greatest gift that anyone could have given me. Because I was shown the bigger picture, I guess. Yeah, I figured it out.
When you say that this is a one-time thing, does that mean one time on the other side? Or does that mean that we only come here once as well? Or do we
No,
reincarnate?
I mean from the level of physicality. So from the level of form, this Jeff that I'm talking to and this Damien Horton, this is in this guise, in this expression of the absolute. This is a one-time only expression of universal consciousness coalescing into form, into matter, having the Jeff experience. That's how sacred you are. That's how important each one of us truly is. But the true self is forever. It's eternal. It cannot. When people try and tell me that they came from a monkey, like they say, yeah, I came from a monkey, I evolved. For me, there could be nothing further from the truth unless we're a materialist, unless we've gotten lost in the physical, in the material world, and become obsessed and seduced by the material world. Then no, I am consciousness. And right now, this experience of consciousness is having a Damien Horton experience, and it needs to be honored, needs to be cherished, needs to be loved. And ultimately, every one of us was born for a purpose, all of us. But to say that you came from a monkey through a common ancestor and through random mutation, you're now here, is to miss the bigger picture. And then look at what sort of world we create. If you want to know what world you create when people believe they came from a monkey, turn on the nightly news and you see the unconscious behavior, the survival behavior, and the reactivity and killing and greed that takes place. But when you know who you are beyond, Jeff, then you would never want to cause harm to your brothers and sisters. You would honor life like everyone does. Everyone that goes through these profound awakenings seems to have a very similar message of love and of compassion, like all the great spiritual teachers have taught for thousands of years. So from the level of form, yeah, I honestly, what I know is that this is a one-time only perfect expression, sacred. It has a start date and an end date. It's linear. But who you are, Jeff, that will always be and will undoubtedly have countless experiences, infinite expressions, which I couldn't, if someone tries to claim they know what they are, I believe that's not the truth. That's a human nervous system attempting to explain something that ultimately can't be explained. And so I can only go as far as saying that I know beyond separation, we are ultimately one. And that this is what quantum physics has proven. And Albert Einstein, I used his famous quote at the end of my book. Einstein said that Damien and Jeff see themselves, their thoughts and feelings, as separate from the whole. Some kind of optical delusion of consciousness. That's coming from Einstein, one of the greatest minds and scientists that has ever lived. Ultimately, what quantum physics has shown is there is a single unified field of consciousness itself, that from this unified field, we get the varied expressions of life. We get matter and polarity from this one unified field. But if you're not scientific, then you could just say God or the universe or source consciousness, whatever word you want to use. But ultimately, that's our home. And it's not something that you're separate from. It is you. There's no subject and object here. It's you. Your true self is that infinite, loving consciousness. That's who we are.
Do you think that we're supposed to come here and have a positive experience? And if so, why do things go off the rails and so many people suffer?
What I can say is just in my own life, I would never hand back the pain that I've been through. Is it possible that we choose to come here to experience up and down, left and right, black and white, masculine, feminine polarity, consciousness? Of course, because it's a unified field of consciousness, and the only way it can experience itself in polarity, in multiplicity, is to separate the absolute, separate itself into this cosmos. So I don't believe that the purpose of life is to awaken, or the purpose of life is this, or the meaning is that. I think that the purpose of human existence is to experience. And then you can't say what's after the word experience, because this is a game of choose your own adventure. You are in co-creation with this higher consciousness, having this experience called life. And some people, maybe part of their path is to experience a lot of loss, a lot of grief and pain. Other people, it might be about expression or truth, or, civil rights, or helping other people, helping underprivileged children or whatever it is. But the way I look at it is, since we've been talking, this innate intelligence that's in our body has given you 25 trillion brand new cells. And you didn't ask for it to do that. And I didn't ask for it to modulate my immune system or push that blood around or any of the countless biological processes that are going on in every moment. It does it for us all equally. Now, I got to see Wayne Dyer just 2 weeks before he passed away. And I didn't even know who he was. I'd never even heard of Wayne Dyer, but he looked at me and he said, you know, the intelligence that's growing your fingernails and it beats your heart, it does that for all of us equally, regardless of if you're Democrat, Republican, white, black, your sexual preferences, your political views. He just said it does it for us all equally. So that higher consciousness, or what people call God, it's loving us into form. It's loving us into being. The complexity of our cardiovascular system, our immune system, digestive system, reproductive system, it is taking care of all of this for us. And your conscious thinking brain doesn't have to do anything. We just get to sit here and have this awesome podcast. Okay, so I just believe that to claim this is it, and if you're not this, you miss the point of life. Or if you're not, you know, all for the Labor Party here in Australia, you miss the point. All of that is born from human unconsciousness, is born from the ego and not knowing where you came from. Because, you know, the big guy upstairs, or God, or the higher self, it's loving you into form and it doesn't judge you. It only loves you. And I can say that when I went to that place, I had no judgment, no punishment for the mistakes I'd made, the people I'd hurt, the drugs I'd taken, none of it. There was no judgment. It's only the judgment that we put on our own beautiful selves. We place this on ourselves during our life, our separate physical linear experience, but none of that comes from some higher power. There is no judgment, condemnation, or punishment that we receive, because I should have received it and I absolutely didn't. It was just love beyond love that I've ever experienced in physical form.
Besides Wayne Dyer, you also were pretty close to another famous speaker, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Can you tell us about your relationship with him?
Yeah, Dr. Joe was a beautiful synchronicity. My mentor came to me when I came out of my coma, and I was his last student. And we spent countless hours going deep into the spiritual teachings and into philosophy. And then he passed. I write about him in my book. His name was John. And John, I went to see John just before he passed. And I was so scared to walk into that hospital just in case he was in fear and all the teachings had been a lie. I mean, this is it. Your game's up now and it's the end. You'll see the truth come through. And I was scared that if I went in there and he was in fear, then he didn't believe in spirit. He didn't believe in our eternal nature. And when I went in there, he was radiant and so connected to his heart that I was in awe. His level of compassion and asking me about my family and how my mum and my brother were. And then his last words to me were, give love and expect nothing in return. And Damien, always remember to be yourself. And then he died. And a mutual friend had seen him just before he died and said, that John was looking forward to going home. He was actually excited for the next experience, which, yeah, it's mind blowing. But that was John. And so after John passed, I'd been deepening my meditation practice, and I just sensed it was time for the next journey, the next support, the next person to call in. And I Googled, healing yourself, and this book pops up, You Are the Placebo. And the man in that book jacket was so familiar. I'd known him for eternity. And I said to my ex-girlfriend, do you see those eyes? This man here, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I said, I've known him forever. We are driving across Australia. Everything changes right now. We're driving, and I'm going to stand on stage and I'm going to speak with this man. And she laughed at me. And she said, no, you're not. You're crazy. And I said, no, this is in my heart. This is in my soul. Nothing can stand in this way. I'm getting a call here that's bigger than even you and me. And 2 weeks later, I click my fingers and we're at Melbourne University, and I'm standing on stage with Dr. Joe. And I said, what do you want me to say? And he goes, just speak your truth, Damo. Tell these people what they can do. And he handed me a microphone and he walked off. He just left me there. And that moment gave birth to everything that I have in my life now. This book was born out of Dr. Joe saying those words, just speak your truth, Damo. For your listeners who know, Dr. Joe healed his own spine after breaking his back. And I broke my back exactly the same as Dr. Joe. And in the exact same way, I healed my back, I healed my spine. And I had no background in biochemistry or neuroscience or epigenetic changes in the body. But I knew as soon as I came out of my coma, the information downloaded into me. I knew how to heal my body and that I would completely heal and be okay. So when I met Joe, it was like this huge, this bond that I shared with him, knowing that I went through what he went through. And then he sort of gave me license, or gave me the confidence to just speak, to just share from my heart without fear of being condemned. I know what I went through. I know the years and years and years and years of reconstructive surgery and learning to talk again and walk again. I know what healed my back and my brain and my body, and it wasn't a doctor, but I'd never had the courage to speak about it. So Dr. Joe was a great help for me in that sense, to just be okay with sharing my story and seeing value in where I'd come from. Like he said, you could help millions of people, Damo. Like my battle with depression and self-hate, believing I was worthless, a little boy that just thought he was worthless. We all go through this stuff. We all we don't talk about it. For some reason, we don't talk about this stuff on podcasts, but the insecurities and the heartache, and the times you put your heart out there for that guy or that girl of your dreams and you were just shut down. Or my meeting with Dr. Joe was so profound and set me on this course that I'm still on to this day. So I'm deeply grateful, I guess, for Dr. Joe. He gave me the first platform to just speak and share my truth from. So yeah, that was my journey with Dr. Joe. We shared a couple of good years together and saw a lot of people do some things that, according to mainstream medicine, they're impossible, but they happened.
After your near-death experience, did you notice that you had any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Yes, absolutely. The ability to remember I guess, experiences that I was meant to have, or leaps of faith into the unknown that were like sketched into some sort of life path. And that knowing, the people sort of call manifesting, which it is, was out of control to the point where I could just pick an object or an item or an event, move into my heart, and it would happen. Physical objects, human beings, even Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe himself was a manifestation that I asked, and I felt it. What is it? The natural man looketh upon the outer world, right? But the higher self, the divine, God, whatever, it looks upon your heart. It's the heart. It's all when the heart is completely pure and you believe in yourself, we create reality. We affect physical matter. And I found that since my coma, I've been able to manifest things that are impossible, but they have taken place. And one of them was Dr. Joe Dispenza. I called him in and asked spirit, or asked consciousness, if it's for the greatest good, then I want you to bring me Dr. Joe Dispenza, and bring it in a way that I could never imagine. And that was at about midnight, one night over in Mexico. And the next morning at 5 a.m., the alarm went off. And my ex-partner, Lisa, and I, we got up to go to the beach for morning meditation. And we opened the door, and in the darkness, in the pitch black, standing, waiting, with his arms folded, was Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, there's thousands and thousands of rooms in this resort. So you can call it a coincidence. It's fine. It is whatever you say it is. And so when it comes to manifesting, if you don't believe that you have that ability, you will never have that ability. But I called it in. My heart was pure. I asked for it. And Joe appeared and then gave me all of his time, all of his support, put his arm around me metaphorically, and was there for me, because I found that when you are in that state of alignment to something pure, something loving, something beautiful, something that is in line with creation, then the manifestations happen. So yeah, for me, the biggest thing was my ability to manifest events and situations.
So do you believe that collectively we are all God, or do you think God is something that is separate from us?
Well, that's the ultimate question. And before my near-death experience, I would have said something out there, something separate from us. But the ultimate truth is that you are God. Each one of us, we are God in drag, or gods in the flesh. And it's a sticking point for a lot of people. And I've done a lot of soul searching about this. And remember, I was an atheist leading up to that near-death experience. And I came out of that coma with zero doubt, none. We are God. There's nothing outside of you. There's nothing outside of human consciousness. But I think it's a sticking point because of the way we perceive reality, the way the five senses, they plug us into this dimension of space and time. Right? We see, we feel, we touch, we hear, we taste. They're reading our environment, and we interpret that and turn it into, chemical, electrical impulses in the brain. And so because of the way we tune into our senses to plug us into reality, we just assume and believe, and because of religion as well, that God is out there, or God is a man on a cloud with a beard. But God is not a man. God is the incomprehensible everything that is no thing. It is your true self, and that's where every one of us comes from, and every one of us goes back. And the most natural thing in this world, the most natural realization you can ever have on your path is that you are God. That's what I found. That's what I found to be true.
Let me ask you this. Are we all gods separately or collectively as one? Like one God?
Collectively. Yeah. Collectively, the inconceivable unified state, this unified field of consciousness that quantum physics talks about, this place that I've traveled to, and your other near-death experience survivors, they've been there, they've touched this place. From that place of unity, we have separated into the dualism, the up, down, black, white, left, right, Republican, Democrat, masculine, feminine, etc. But ultimately, collectively, there is nothing that is not God. We are, this is why I was saying we are a unique and sacred, divine, one time only expression of the higher consciousness of God, having a linear experience that we call life. And so in my coma, it's not I am Damien, it's I am. And I am is the name of God. Whatever you condition I am to be, it becomes. You say, I am no good, you won't be good. The creative power in the universe is consciousness itself. And we all come from this impossible nothing that in yet contains everything. And it never had a beginning and it never had an end. And it's the home for all of us. But one thing I can tell your listeners right now is we did not come from a monkey. This common ancestor, this thing we've been fed that, you know, scientists have found evidence that, well, yeah, from the level of form or physicality and matter, they might have found evidence that there was an evolutionary path. But that's not who you are. And everyone that has a near-death experience and touches that realm of the infinite, of the ultimate state of bliss and unity, they know that we are the true self. It's that we are conscious love. And that's who we really are.
A significant number of my near-death experience guests have some sort of UFO contact afterwards. Have you had any contact or seen UFOs or anything after your NDE?
No, not afterwards. I've had profound out-of-body experiences in meditation. It's easy for me to drop into that place and have the mystical experience, you know, what's referred to, you know, as the Kundalini energy rising up through your spinal cord. That's easy for me to pull that up into my brain and have those experiences. But in the physical, the outer world, when I was a kid, I was on the far west coast of South Australia. And I was with two of my closest friends and their dad, who's a teacher, is a well-educated man. And I must have been 13 years old, maybe 14 years old. And we're looking out at the water of this bay. And all four of us saw a UFO. And right now, Jeff, this podcast is the first time I've ever shared this or spoken about this in public. And like with my coma experience, it's something that, regardless of any condemnation or what anyone else says, I know what happened that day. And it was a black triangle, as cliche as that sounds. But it wasn't solid. It wasn't like a shiny object up in the sky. It could change form, and it almost seemed translucent, and it moved in ways that are impossible with our known laws of physics. Absolutely impossible for an aircraft to move the way it moved, or with the speed in which it was able to move through the sky. And all four of us saw it. And we found out later that there was about 30 UFO reports on that day on the far west coast of South Australia. But yeah, again, I guess fear of being called a crackpot. I've never spoken about it. I've only shared it with a couple of really close friends. But that was well before my near-death experience.
Well, in the beginning of our time together, I mentioned that you are a singer and a songwriter. What type of music are you producing?
It varies greatly in genre. I don't ever sit down and think about writing a song. I don't try and write a song. Something comes through me when I get out of the way, when there's literally there's no trying. It's Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. It's somehow that flow state, when I get into that, it's like channeling. Something comes through, and it's generally fully formed, and the lyrics and the melody are already there. And I just try and capture it. It's often healing something within me that I need to heal. It's like an unprocessed emotion, or it's something that's happened in my life, or a friend that's going through something. And I just have to try and capture the emotion. And whatever music or genre captures the emotion is just how the song comes out. And I don't like to question it, and I don't like getting into the analytical brain when I compose. So yeah, there's singer-songwriter, there's acoustic, there's folk rock, there's alternative, there's bluesy stuff in there. There's a bit of world music, even some Middle Eastern influences. So it's really, for me, it's about, can you feel it? Because music is energy. And so if I've gotten that emotion across, then I feel like I've done my job properly. But everything's up on Spotify for your listeners that want to check it out. The more rocky songs are the ones that have seemed like they've done better on Spotify. But there's a wide variety of music up there.
Were you producing music before the NDE? And if so, how did the experience change your music?
Well, I had always been playing guitar, but I never believed I had anything worthy. I didn't believe I was worthy. And so if you don't think you're worthy of anything, you're not going to share what's connected to your heart with the world or have a voice. So the NDE gave me my voice back. And it taught me that that I'm meant to be here, and that I'm a good human being, that my words and my creations have merit, as all of us. So I guess it gave me the confidence to just go into the studio and start capturing it. But it definitely opened a door to creativity through the composition process, it was pretty profound that it was even in there. Sometimes I write a song and I'm like, I didn't do that. I've had my hand move across the neck where I didn't consciously do any of it, and it felt like something moved my hand, even in one of my most popular songs, Footsteps, on Spotify. And yeah, that song was born out of a mistake. I accidentally put the capo, which is the thing you put on the guitar to change the pitch. I had the capo on the wrong fret. I thought I was going to play some other song, and then just boom, this song came out, and I knew something was happening. So I quickly just pressed record, and this often happens. The song was just there. It was just there. And from the album last year, a song called Stay was in a dream the whole night. The melody and the lyrics were there, and it was almost driving me insane. So when I came out of my dream, I said to my partner, Fiona, I've just written the most beautiful song. And I'm never going to remember it. She goes, yes, you will. I said, no, it's already fading. And she goes, no, just trust. Trust in yourself and go get your guitar and it will be there. So I went downstairs, I did a little spot meditation, picked up the guitar, and the whole 5-minute song just went, and the lyrics and everything stayed exactly how it came out when we finally recorded it about a year later. So yeah, that definitely has expanded exponentially. And my ability to feel gratitude and love is at 3,000,000% out of 10. So if 1 to 10 is all you can feel, when I connect in with that space, and it could just be a sunrise or watching something happen in nature, you know, the most simple thing, but in the normal state of consciousness, we can't even feel appreciation for it. Like that breath I just took just then, it's 1,000,000,000 to 1 that I'm here right now. And so I can finally feel that appreciation for existence. I can finally feel that love for life. And I guess what is sad for me or troubling is that, do you need to have your face cut off? Do you need to go through that amount of pain? Do you need to lose life to actually appreciate the gift of life? And in my path, yes, that was the case. I did. I needed all of this, and it's become a diamond. I went digging for the diamonds, and there was beauty in all the pain that I've been through. So they're the main things that have been unlocked, I guess, since this whole thing began.
Have you written a song about your NDE?
That's what my producer, actually, just a little digression here, but one of my manifestations was to work with JeffMara. He's the lead singer of the Tea Party, the Canadian rock group. I stood in the audience and watched him up on stage, and I said, I'm going to play on stage with him one day, and I'm going to play that guitar, because he was playing a 1916 Gibson harp guitar, and that manifested. I literally ended up living at his home for 2 months here in Byron Bay and making a couple of records. And while I was there, he said the same words you just said. Where's your song about your near-death experience? And so I wrote it, and it's called Digging for Diamonds. But I then judged it, and I got really critical, and I threw it in the bin. I got worried about releasing it to the world, if you will. Even though I believe that once we write a song, or once you paint that painting, or you write that poem, it's not yours anymore anyway. It's kind of none of my business whether or not Digging for Diamonds is a good song. What was my business was to try and feel and be authentic and create something, and then leave it up to everyone out there to decide ultimately. So yeah, in answer to your question, there's one there, but it's currently in the trash bin. So I might need to dig it out.
It's my understanding that you have two YouTube channels, one that's dedicated for your music and then one that's about your near-death experience, among other things. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. As you mentioned before we jumped on this show, that your suggestion would be to keep it separate. That's sort of what I decided about 4 years ago. So even though it's a lot more work, as you know, to have multiple channels, I've kept one that's just Damien Horton music and one that's the Limitless Initiatives channel, which is just a channel dedicated to personal development. It's dedicated to sharing truth and my thousands of hours of research into the nature of consciousness and healing, into biology and neuroscience, as well as meditation and um, anything that improves life, basically. Any tips that I would give my younger self is what I'm putting up there. And it's extremely rewarding, although it's, as you know, with a channel, it takes a lot of work as well. So, yeah.
Your book is called Limitless, Reconnecting with the Infinite Power Within.
Yeah.
If people want to know more about it, should they go to Amazon or a website?
No, go to, I'll share a link with you because it's now wholly and solely through my website that book is being sold. And I actually just spent about 3 months making the video book. So I got all the camera equipment and sat down and I take people through the journey with extra teachings in there. And I thought the author should read their own book. You know, a lot of people get their book up on Audible and they pay someone else to read it. Because this is my path and my story, I thought I should read it. So it's available as an ebook, or at the moment I've got the video book discounted. So I'll keep that discount for any of your viewers so they can get it if they're interested at the reduced price, the video book.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. Always. Always. The best way to get in touch with me really is through Instagram. That's how I think that's how you got in touch with me, Jeff. Because I'm active on Instagram. So either a DM on Insta, which is just Damien Horton Music. Kind of got that conundrum again with separating the two different pages, but at the moment it's just all on Damien Horton Music. Or they can just email me at support@damienhorton.com, DAMIENHORTON.com.
Damien, do you have anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Well, I've got my workshops, these live events that have just been, at the moment, they're just being run in Australia. So I spent about a year of my life building these and putting all the wisdom that I've learned and all the incredible teachers and scientists and speakers that I've met on this journey, the best of the best, into these workshops. So for anyone that's interested in registering their interest, it's just at damienhorton.com/workshops. And I'm also just about to finish some digital products. So for those who would love to get to Australia but can't travel, the advanced workshop is being turned into a digital product as we speak. And the new book as well, which I was lying in bed about 3 weeks ago and I got the call that I had to write a book, and this is what it's called and this is what must happen. And in the last couple of weeks, I've written over 50,000 words. I've been getting up every morning and going to this lookout, and it's just been channeling through this message. So this new book should be up and out into the world within a few months.
Damien, before we wrap it up, can you leave
Yep.
us with one last positive message?
What I would say is this: every one of us has limitless potential inside us. And I know this to be the case because of the profound change that happened in my life. And the catalyst for me was indescribable pain and ultimately breaking my mum's heart. I'm here now because when mum came into intensive care and I saw the pain that I'd caused her, I promised that higher consciousness. I swore on my soul that I would help other human beings and I would teach and I would change my life and I would heal depression and my brain and body, and I would do it for my mum. So the question has always been, was this potential in me, in all of us, is it not there, just latent inside us, but we're not aware of it? And yet when some adversity or a tragedy or the death of a loved one or some big crisis takes place in our life, we see all throughout history human beings accomplish things that seem superhuman, truly. And we wonder how in the face of such pain or such torment or loss could a human being create or share or give something so incredible? And what I want to just say is that we all have this power inside ourselves. And we can either place that power at someone else's feet and worship, the guru, or worship someone else. But my message is, like, own it, become it, be it, express it, live it for yourself, because your voice matters. You were born, literally, you were born to express your unique, perfect, beautiful, divine abilities and skill sets that you were given. They're innate and unique to you. And you don't need to wait for the worst to happen. You don't need to wait for the pain. People either change from pain, like I did, or they change from love and a responsibility to life, to spirit, to God, whatever you call it. So I just want people to do it from that place of understanding that you have what it takes and that you matter, that there is a plan for all of us and that you've got this. You can follow any dream that you have inside yourself and you'll get help along the way. As I said before, when it's aligned with your heart and it comes from that pure expression of your soul, you don't have to do all the work because doors open, the manifestations come, and you're able to literally fulfill destiny, I guess is what I would say, and make this world just a little bit better for yourself and for generations to come, because we need that. Just turn on the news, have a look at the nightly news, So for me, it's not judging and pointing outward. It's actually Dr. Joe Dispenza who gave this advice to me. He said, "Hey, Damon, what are you doing to contribute to the problem, man?" So yeah, that's what I do. Instead, I say, what can I do today to be of service and to make this world a little bit better, rather than judging and blaming and attacking other human beings, because that is what got us caught in the karmic wheel. Action, reaction, an eye for an eye, round, round. That's it.
Damien, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.